Exodus chapter 18, verses 1 through 27, Bible study, KJV based. Today we turn to Exodus chapter 18, a powerful and often overlooked passage that reveals not only God's providence, but also His wisdom in leadership, structure, and spiritual community. To fully understand this chapter, we must first connect it to the broader context. The people of Israel have just experienced miraculous deliverance from Egypt, crossing the Red Sea and witnessing God's provision in the wilderness, manna from heaven, water from the rock, and victory over Amalek. Now, in this moment of transition, God introduces something essential, not another miracle, but wisdom. This chapter centers around Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, a Midianite priest. His arrival is not accidental. It is divinely timed. 1. Jethro hears of God's work, verses 1 through 6. Jethro hears of all that God has done for Moses and Israel, how the Lord brought them out of Egypt. Why is this important? Because God's work is not meant to remain hidden. Even those outside the covenant, like Jethro, are drawn to the testimony of God's power. From a Hebrew perspective, testimony is central. The word often implies not just hearing, but witnessing and responding. Jethro does not just hear, he comes. Spiritually, this reminds us that when God moves in your life, others will be drawn not by your words alone, but by the evidence of God's hand upon you. 2. Reunion and testimony, verses 7 through 12. Moses meets Jethro with humility. He bows, he honors him, and then he shares everything the Lord has done. Notice this carefully. Moses does not glorify himself. He does not speak of his leadership or courage. He speaks of God. And Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done. Why? Because true spiritual leadership always points back to God. Jethro's response is profound. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods. This is a turning point. A Gentile priest recognizes the supremacy of Yahweh. From a theological perspective, this reveals that God's plan has always included the nations. Even in the Old Testament, God is revealing Himself beyond Israel. Spiritually, this teaches us that your testimony can lead others to faith. 3. Moses overburdened, verses 13 through 18. Now we come to a critical moment. Moses sits from morning until evening judging the people. People stand waiting all day to receive guidance. At first glance, this seems admirable. Moses is devoted, sacrificial, hardworking. But Jethro sees something Moses cannot. This thing that thou doest is not good. Why would something that seems good not be good? Because it is unsustainable. Because it places the burden on one man instead of a community. Because even spiritual leaders are not meant to carry everything alone. Here we see a deep spiritual truth. God does not call us to burnout. He calls us to obedience with wisdom. Many believers today fall into this same trap, doing everything, carrying everyone until they collapse. But God's design is not exhaustion. It is order. 4. Godly leadership structure, verses 19 through 23. Jethro gives Moses wise counsel. Teach the people God's laws. Show them the way to live. Appoint capable men. Delegate responsibility. This is not just practical advice. This is divine wisdom expressed through human counsel. The Hebrew concept here reflects order seder. Seder God is a God of structure. Jethro describes leaders as able men, fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness. This is crucial. Leadership is not about skill alone, it is about character. From a spiritual perspective, this passage teaches that God raises leaders not for control, but for service. And leadership must be shared. 5. Moses listens, verses 24 through 27. Perhaps the most powerful part of this chapter is this. Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law. Moses, the great prophet, the one who spoke with God, face to face listens to advice. This is humility. This is wisdom. This is spiritual maturity. Many people fail not because they lack calling, but because they lack teachability. Moses shows us that even the greatest leaders must remain learners. Spiritual meaning and God's will. This chapter reveals something profound about God's will. God's will is not only in miracles, it is in structure, wisdom, and relationships. God works not only through divine revelation, but through people. Jethro was not an Israelite prophet, yet God used him. This teaches us God can speak through unexpected people. Wisdom is part of God's provision. Spiritual life requires balance and order. Application for today. In our modern lives, this message is incredibly relevant. Many people are overwhelmed. Too much responsibility, too much pressure, too much expectation. But God is saying, You are not meant to carry everything alone. Build structure, share responsibility, seek wise counsel. And most importantly, keep your focus on God, not on the burden. Closing reflection. Exodus 18 is not about a miracle. It is about alignment. When we align with God's design, life becomes sustainable, fruitful, and peaceful. May we learn from Moses. May we listen. May we build wisely. And may we walk in the order that God has prepared for us. Thank you.